I tried pantsing my novel and this happened. I've always admired pantsers. These are the writers who fly by the seat of their pants when writing their book. They don't outline, they don't plan. They seem to be the anointed few who wake up with a story that is ready to be written. For the past few years, I've plotted every story I've written. I've penned the act breaks, I've outlined the beats, and I've even gone as far as having individual scenes mapped out. But I didn't start writing like this. When I first got into writing way back when I was at school, I didn't know about structure. I just wrote whatever story came to me. And then when I got back into writing in my mid-20s, a similar thing happened. I was able to write just as easily. It's only when I started submitting my work to competitions or critique that I changed my approach. So after years of ticking the check boxes of a good story structure, I plan to shake things up and pants my next project. The results of this challenge were surprising, to say the least, and you're welcome to jump ahead to the end to see what my outcome was. But I would like to invite you to stick around as I unpack what my pantsing experience was really like. It all started on a drive to a coffee shop. I was listening to a song that inspired a sticky idea that I had to grip onto before it found someone else. I just finished reading Big Magic, which prompted me to make a contract with the idea that I would give this project my best. It's almost as if by doing this, part of the story revealed itself to me, and this resulted in me capturing these moments in a notebook. Not too long after, I dove into the first chapter. After a week, I'd written 10,000 words, and I felt like I was flying. I sent the first 10,000 words off to get some feedback, and the feedback was amazing, which only added to my enthusiasm to see this project through. I then decided to make a bold move. In an attempt to give this project my all, I decided to take a month off YouTube and use the time that I usually create content to focusing specifically on finishing this project. In theory, this felt like the right move, but in reality, this is where the wheels came off. At first, I was able to write every time I sat down and faced the blank page. But then there was a shift in my thinking. My thoughts went from a space of obsessing about my book to stressing about who would read it. I realized that I wasn't making an effort to get my book in front of the right audience. And so instead of writing my book, I started forming a marketing strategy. Now, making content for Instagram and TikTok has a steep learning curve. And the irony is I removed myself from YouTube to focus on my book, but I spend more time away from my book focusing on other social media platforms. But I didn't only just focus on trying to get somewhat of a social presence going. I also put a lot of time into finding guests for my podcast and prepping for those interviews, as well as having those interviews and then editing those interviews. All of that took a lot of time which I would have spent writing. I guess there was just an opportunity cost that I wasn't prepared for. But if you had to ask me if I felt like I wasted my time, I'm going to say no to that, because if I had already finished my book and had something that I was hoping to get in front of an audience, I think I would have felt a lot of pressure in the process of setting up these social media profiles. And because I have nothing to punt or nothing to move right now, I just felt like it was a stress-free way of entering a space that could feel overwhelming. So I'm not upset with how I used that time. And also doing those podcast interviews and just meeting people who are ahead of me in the journey or on other parts of the process of getting a book out into the world that I necessarily would not be doing myself as a writer if I wanted to go the traditional approach. It just really educated me and helped me understand a lot more about what this giant process of getting a book out there entails. So again, it was really nice because I'm not represented by anyone at the moment. I, again, haven't submitted my book anywhere or queried any agent specifically. So it's nice to have conversations without having any expectations. And I really enjoy simply being curious in this phase. So even though I didn't achieve my goal of finishing my book in the month, I'm not necessarily upset about it either. I also got to the point where I just didn't feel like writing. I was just so overwhelmed with how stuck I felt with my story. Just every direction I was going in didn't feel right, and I felt like I lost the plot because I didn't have one. And because it just kept changing so much. So I just felt myself needing to get to the point where I could agree on a theme, figure out how this theme followed through the entirety of the book, as opposed to just letting myself move with inspiration. But I might also be doing the whole pantsing experience wrong. So if you're a pantser watching this and you have any tips on how I should have gone about the process, let me know in the comments below. At first, this uncertainty was exciting. It's what got me to sit down and write every single day and had me reach 10,000 words in under a week. But when I was almost halfway into the book and I was having to constantly re-edit earlier chapters because of how the story was evolving, writing stopped feeling like art and it started feeling like math. After 2 weeks of doing anything but writing, I had an honest check-in with myself. I hated pantsing this project. I felt so lost in what I was writing, and where I first felt like I was flying, I now felt like I was drowning. So I pulled out a notebook and enlisted the help of my good old friend, the beat sheet. I now know where I'm going with this book, and if that means I'm not one of the selected few who gets to wake up and write a book without an outline anymore, that's fine by me.